Right, what we're going to do now is talk about 2000. So, we shall have our first overhead up, young lady. So why are we here this weekend? Well, the aim of this weekend is to give you an opportunity to meet some of your other crew volunteers going to be sailing with. An opportunity to families to meet families. Opportunity for all of you to have a go on the boat. And if you have to have someone else who's come along for this weekend and they aren't on the boat and there is space, then of course we'd be delighted for them to go. You just have to clear it with Helen. Opportunity to ask questions, and we'll take them at the end. And of course also to meet some of the Challenge Business team. The route. Some of you will know quite a lot of the answers to these, but we'll tell you all about them anyway. Now, one thing that came out of the crew volunteers review meeting was that they thought the last leg was a leg too far. So what we're doing is we're reversing the situation for two reasons. One is that we've listened to what they've said and we've taken that on board. And the second reason, of course, is that we got to involve America. There's no point in involving America at the very end. We want to involve them up the front. So what we'll be doing is going from the UK across the Atlantic against the prevailing winds. It keeps an ethos with the way we're going. Nice quick sprint across the Atlantic. It's only 3,000 miles. Christ, I know some guy that rode it, for God's sake. Across to Boston or thereabouts. Now, from there, we then go down to a South American city. I'm being iffy about these just now, and I'll tell you why in a few seconds. South America, definitely to Wellington. You'll have a great time in Wellington. Bungee jumping is compulsory. Wellington to Sydney. I mean, and I tell you, that was just so fantastic. You know, boat after boat after boat, just coming in sort of, you know, what was it, about a minute or something separating the boats as well. Absolutely incredible it was. All arrived in this wonderful scene, barbecue and red wine, white wine, lagers. Sydney to Cape Town, then Cape Town, of course, back to the US, back to UK. The reason I'm being iffy about Boston and Rio de Janeiro is we're going to look at that. Our policy has always been to go to places where the sponsors can do business. And clearly, you can do business in Boston, but we're looking at the possibility of other cities as well, but it'll certainly be America. Rio de Janeiro, some of the crew weren't that excited about Rio. I actually personally love Rio. I think it's a great place, but it's very difficult for corporate hospitality, so we're looking at the possibility whether it may be at Rio or not. But if it isn't, it will certainly be somewhere quite as exotic. You leave in mid-September, and you arrive back in July 2001. Quite simple, really, isn't it? Distances are 3,000 miles to Boston, 5,200 to Rio, 6,600 to Rio Wellington, Wellington to Sydney, 1,230, Sydney Cape Town, 6,200, Cape Town UK, 7,000 miles. So next overhead, please. So how are we going to get you ready for this? Well, very much training. And the training is broken down into 4 areas. One, of course, is introduction. And that covers very much the ethos, safety, seamanship, things like this. During that period of time, when you do the induction, you spend 2 nights at the marina. And the reason for that is purely and simply because for those who have never been to sea before, if they feel a bit wheezy, come back at the marina. No point just getting you out there and being ill for being ill sake. You spend the first couple of nights at the marina. But when you go out for the rest of the sails, you go out there and you're out there for the duration of the 5 days, because it's all 5-day segments. And you're out there for the 5 days. That's to maximise, of course, the time you're at sea. In continuation, of course, it's the watch systems, associated teamwork and stuff like that. Assessment is very much longer passages, weather routing, stuff like that. And finally, of course, placement. You only have one instructor on board. There's two previous to that. And you start taking the responsibility for all the bits and pieces. Give the next slide, please. We make up the training module, both proactive and reactive. Proactive is what we know we're going to be telling you how to do it. And reactive, of course, is looking for ways we could help you if you're not up to it, or better still, if you're that much further ahead, we should be looking for ways to help you for the next phases and so on. So we identify the needs of the activity. That goes down to identify the needs of the individual. We then look for the instructing or coaching opportunities. Obviously, the first ones are pretty easy, the induction training. Then brief you, and then, of course, we then have the event itself. And then we look at the appraisal situation. What did you learn? What did you do well? What could be improved? How can the performance be better in the future? We then go to the next step. The next step may very well be more experience, which goes you go up to look for more coaching opportunities or other areas of development, and we identify the needs of the individual. We also want, of course, your ideas fed back to us. We're not, although we've been doing it for some time, and although I've been around the world 3 times, we still need you guys to come and tell us. You'll be amazed how 1 or 2 things on board, something will come to you. We haven't got a monopoly on ideas. If you've got something you think might be working, come and tell us about it. We want to know it. Some of the ideas from the VT Global Challenge and British Steel Challenge were developed from crew volunteers. They came along and said, hey, what do you about this sort of idea? Remember, it's your boats. She's going to be going on them. Want a lot of trust between us. You're going to be trusting the crew. You're going to be teaching you. A lot of openness. And of course, that in turn makes good communications. Could we get the next overhead, please? Team makeup and timings. Now, in November 1999, it takes 4 of us to sit down and go through all the crew volunteers and to try and put you into teams so you're basically level at that particular stage of the game. We look for various types who will go in as watch leaders, foredecks, amidships, and afterguard. And of course, there's a lot more factors involved in that. We also look at your own individual skills, such as medical, electrical, computers, engineering, these sort of things. And we go all the way through the boats and build them up in teams. In late December, we then invite the sponsors to come along for our Christmas drink. We then have all the teams in an envelope. We shuffle them all up before they have a drink. And then they then choose a team. Up until that moment in time, we've got absolutely no idea at all as to who's going to go into what boat. We then all meet at the London Boat Show, and then, of course, you're then put into teams. Really quite funny, because we invite you to tell us who you don't want to sail with. We say, who do you don't want to sail with? And, of course, it's the person who comes along with 15 names. He's the dumzo, really. Really quite funny, the last time we were putting BT Global Challenge names up. It's literally an overhead, and I'm on the stage just like we are now. And we put the first overhead up with the first team, and all the crew volunteers are there, and all waiting to see which boat they're on and who they're sailing with. And the very first overhead, there was a girl from the middle of the room. You could just hear her, she's, oh, Christ. Absolutely funnier than fiction. Yeah. You wanted too much.